And so this is a presentation that's being sponsored or hosted by the Education Council for the California Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and there are several members of our council in attendance tonight. So thank you for those of you who came in. Rachel Flores was here logged in early to help get us started. I will introduce our speaker, and she has mentioned that there should be plenty of time at the end for questions. And you are able to, Lacey, you're going to control this on your own.
That's my plan.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure if you needed my help to be available for you. So you can use the chat to ask questions if you need to. I will help look over that when we have time for questions later. And I will continue to look at the attendee list to let people in as needed. So without any longer delay, I would love to welcome our guest speaker today. This is Dr. Lacey Peterson. She may tell you more about herself, but she is a program director for some Ascend accredited programs, and she is an Ascend reviewer. She is an expert in the areas that we're talking about tonight, and she's going to share her extensive knowledge about the pathways to the RDN credential, because we know that there are some new things that maybe not everyone's really aware of, maybe have lots of questions. And so thank you so much for coming and sharing with us tonight. Welcome.
Great. Thank you, Emily. Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy that you can join me today. It's my honor to be here with you, and it's one of my professional goals to help individuals understand the different pathways to becoming a registered dietitian nutritionist. And so I hope through the information that I share today that it will help to make the journey just a little bit clearer. And so please, as any questions come up, go ahead and put those in the chat box. I might not answer them immediately, but we can go back through the chat and make sure all the questions are answered. If we run out of time, I can follow up later, but don't necessarily wait. Put your questions in the chat box because I want to make sure that we can answer as many questions as possible. So thank you so much for that introduction, Emily. I just want to share a little bit about me. So right now I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. I am the program director at Utah State University, but I'm originally from Riverside County in California. I came out to Utah for college and then I never left. I am also a first generation college graduate. And when I kind of started on the path in my academic career, I didn't quite know how I would complete a bachelor's degree, but then I went along to complete a master's degree and then a PhD. The path for me was long and I learned a lot along the way. And I didn't necessarily understand the intricacies of attending college. So it is my professional goal to help others learn more about that and again, make the path a little bit easier. I've been a registered dietitian for almost 18 years. I've worked mostly in diabetes management, both in the inpatient and in the outpatient setting. I actually have worked in pharmaceutical sales. I now have worked in academia as a faculty member and as a program director for the past 10 years, but I also still do telehealth. And so I have a lot of different areas of interest in dietetics, and that helps me to also mentor students into various areas as well. So I'm going to start this presentation with some really basic information that I know that's not always shared with students. And I think it's going to help to provide a better framework to understanding the different educational options that are available to you to become a registered dietitian. First off, what is ASCEND? ASCEND stands for the Accreditation Council for Education in Nutrition and Dietetics. So this is the accrediting agency that oversees the accreditation of all dietetics programs. The accreditation itself is what determines what programs an individual can complete and qualify to take the RD exam. So if a program doesn't have ASCEND accreditation, then it's not necessarily going to lead directly to the RD exam. What I want you to know about this is ASCEND accreditation status should always be listed on the homepage of a program's website. So as you're looking at different programs, and we're going to talk about the paths later on, but one question that you can ask is, do you have ASCEND accreditation? Next, I want to talk about what is CDR. CDR stands for the Commission on Dietetics Registration. This is the organization that administers the RD exam and the organization that RDNs report to ensure that they continue to meet the requirements to maintain their RDN status, their credential. This is just a screenshot of the CDR homepage, but there's a lot of interactions that go on with CDR, partially as program directors. This is who we send documentation to make sure that they know that a student is eligible or graduate is eligible to take the exam. This is who administers the exam, and then you'll have interactions with CDR all through your career. So a lot of us are here and want to talk about this topic because of the master's degree requirement. This is the big change that we say is coming, but ultimately it's already here. So as of January 1st of 2024, the minimum degree requirement for eligibility to take the RD exam is moving from a bachelor's degree to a graduate degree. So that can be a master's degree or a doctorate degree. And for most individuals, it's going to be a master's degree. All of the other requirements, having completed an Ascend accredited program and 1,000 hours of supervised practice, remain the same, but the major change is this master's degree requirement. And this is specifically coming from the Commission on Dietetics Registration. What you want to know from here is there are no specific requirements at this time related to what the subject of the master's degree or the doctoral degree is in. And there are some serious pros and cons related to this. The pros are this can allow a student to diversify their education if they have an undergrad degree in nutrition and dietetics, to bring other skills to the table that students can focus on other than just nutrition and dietetics. This can also provide flexibility. So if you want to complete graduate training in nutrition and dietetics, that works. If you want to focus on public health, such as an MPH, health education, counseling. There's lots of master's degrees that is focusing just on counseling, business, like an MDA or dietetics administration, leadership and management, health administration. These are all viable master's degrees that can also help you to qualify to take that RD exam. So we're not only looking at nutrition and dietetics, but we can diversify from here as well. And that's a great pro, but the con is that entry-level dietitians are not necessarily changing their education level related to that nutrition and dietetics. They're bringing in additional knowledge and skills. This slide is very busy, but this is going to start talking about the pathways and the options that individuals have to become a registered dietitian. So these are different types of dietetics programs or accreditation types that lead to qualifying to take the RD exam. And so this is actually an old graphic. This graphic isn't available anymore, but this used to be on the Ascend website, and it just provides a visual. So the first program you can see here, which is at the top blue program, is a DPD program, and this is a didactic program in dietetics. And I'll talk a little bit more about the intricacies of each of these programs in a moment. So one accreditation pathway is a DPD program. The Brown program is a dietetic internship, and this is a program that provides that minimum of 1,000 hours of supervised practice. And so to qualify to take the RD exam, a student can complete a DPD program plus a DI that will give the foundational coursework plus a supervised practice. And at the end of both of these programs together, along with that master's degree, they would qualify to take the RD exam. The green program listed here is the CPD program, or the Coordinated Program in Dietetics. A coordinated program combines both knowledge competencies, the foundational coursework to become a registered dietitian, and the 1,000 hours of supervised practice. They're combined into one program. So the completion of this one program would lead, plus a master's degree, would lead to qualifying for the RD exam. The purple program is the DTR program. And so we're not necessarily going to talk about dietetics technician programs tonight, because the purpose of this is talking about how to become a registered dietitian, but that is also an accredited program. And then we have two international options that we're also not going to talk about tonight. One is the foreign dietetics education, and the other one is the international dietetics education. Then the last program here at the bottom, also in blue, is the the graduate degree programs that are often referred to as the future education model. In these programs, you have a combination of a master's degree and that 1,000 hours of rotations. These programs may or may not provide the foundational knowledge and coursework needed to become a registered dietitian, but they could. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. And I know this is where it's going to start getting a little bit confusing and convoluted. So I'm going to cover these topics kind of multiple times in multiple different situations to hopefully help this make a little bit more sense. So mostly tonight, we're going to talk about DPD programs, DIs, dietetic internships, coordinated programs, and future education model. So here's another graphic that kind of represents the pathway. So first, you have to have a master's degree. And again, this is not necessarily longitudinal. You're not going to get the master's degree first, but when you're thinking about what you need to have to qualify to be a registered dietitian or sit for that RD exam, one thing you're going to have is a master's degree. It can be in nutrition and dietetics, or it can be in a different subject. Then you have to complete one of these other three bubbles that you can see here. You can complete a future graduate degree program, or you can complete a bachelor's or graduate degree coordinated program. So if you remember, the coordinated program combines the foundational knowledge and skills you need to become a registered dietitian plus supervised practice. Or you can complete the didactic program in dietetics, a DPD program, plus supervised practice through a dietetic internship. So everybody has to have a master's degree, and then plus you have to check one of these three boxes here to qualify for the RD exam. How do you know if you qualify for the RD exam? I want to talk about verification statements because this is another really important term and topic that is very helpful as individuals are thinking about becoming a registered dietitian and they are interacting with different programs and asking questions. This is one of the things that you can ask about because this is a critical part of accredited dietetics programs. The signed verification statement documents that an individual has completed the specific requirements outlined by accreditation by a SEND, and that upon the program completion, they are issued this verification statement. Now, along the path, students might be issued 1 or 2 verification statements. But somewhere in the training, every single student will be issued a verification statement at some point in time. And so depending on the path that you choose, if you choose a DPD program plus a DI, a dietetic internship, you would be issued a verification statement from your DPD program, and you would be issued a verification statement from your DI. And that verification statement from the DI would show that you qualify to take the RD exam. If you complete a coordinated program that again provides the knowledge and foundational skills to be a dietitian and supervised practice, you would be issued 1 verification statement, and this verification statement would state that you qualify to take the RD exam. Or if you complete a graduate program, also known as a future education model, this future education model verification statement shows that you would qualify to take the RD exam. And so this is a really important document. So as you are talking to programs, one of the questions you can ask them is, are you going to send an accredited program? And at the completion of this program, am I issued a verification statement? If they say, yes, you're issued a verification statement, you can ask them, does this verification statement indicate that I qualify to take the RD exam? And in the case, most programs, the answer would be yes, unless you're doing a DPD program, and then they would tell you that this verification statement would indicate that you qualify to apply to dietetic internships. And again, if there's questions, please put them in the chat so I can address any questions. And this is a picture of what a verification statement looks like. They all look the same. They're just filled out a little bit different. Okay, so back to these 3 program types again. Again, I'm going to talk about these things in various ways. Just I'm hoping that the information that I share makes sense and it helps to facilitate some good questions and answers. So again, we have the coordinated program, and a coordinated program provides the foundational knowledges and skills that you need to become a registered dietitian, and it also provides 1,000 hours of supervised practice. And so everything is combined in this program. And so with this, it is Ascend accredited, and it issues a verification statement that would result in you qualifying to take the RD exam as long as you have a master's degree at the end of the program. You could potentially come in with a master's degree, or a master's degree might be part of the coordinated program. Then there's the combination of completing a didactic program in dietetics, which again is the foundational coursework, but the DPD program does not provide the 1,000 hours of rotations. So you would combine a DPD program, you would complete that first, and then they would issue you a verification statement that states that you completed this accredited program, and now you qualify to complete a dietetic internship, which is those 1,000 hours of rotations. This combined with a master's degree, you would be issued a verification statement that shows that you qualify to take the RD exam. And then there's a future education model, also known as graduate programs. Every one of these programs includes a master's degree. There's no future education program that does not include at least a master's degree, if not a doctoral degree. These are not offered at the bachelor's level. So some of them will offer that foundational coursework, but some programs require that you complete a list of prerequisites. Some may include that in a sense, what you would complete as part of your DPD. So some programs might require that you complete a DPD and be issued a verification statement, come in and complete the 1,000 hours of rotations, plus the master's degree in a future education model. Other future education models will provide all of the foundational coursework, plus the 1,000 hours, plus the master's degree. So the future education models have a lot of different structures and makeups, where the coordinated program, all coordinated programs look very similar, with the exceptions they might be at the bachelor's degree or the master's degree. Didactic programs and dietetics, DPDs and dietetic internships relatively have the same structure from program to program, but future education models differ greatly. So here's a little bit more information. So if you're going to complete the didactic program plus the DI, or an ISB, and I'll talk about an ISB here on the next slide, you would complete that DPD program. So all of your courses like medical nutrition therapy, food service management, food science, counseling, education, those courses would be completed. You would be issued at least a bachelor's degree, and you would be issued a verification statement. You can then apply to a dietetic internship. If your DPD program was at the master's level, you've already been issued a master's degree, you can apply to a dietetic internship that's what we call a standalone dietetic internship. It's just the 1,000 hours of practice. If you completed a DPD program at the bachelor's level, you can apply to a dietetic internship that includes a master's degree. We would call that, sometimes we call that an MSDI. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting a master's of science, but it's a master's program combined with a dietetic internship. Often they're stacked. Maybe you complete the master's degree first and then the supervised practice, or vice versa. Sometimes they're integrated, but more likely they're stacked on top of each other. They can be offered all by one entity, or sometimes there's partnerships out there where you might partner with an organization and a university to provide that master's degree in dietetic internship. At the conclusion of this program, a verification statement is issued, and that would qualify you to take the RD exam. So I say here didactic program plus DI, or an ISB. So what's an ISB? ISB stands for Individualized Supervised Practice Pathway. ISB programs are pathways for graduates who apply to a dietetic internship after their DPD program, but they're not matched. And so right now we have a matching process where you apply to various programs, and through this systematic process, you are matched with a program through a selection process. So for those who do not obtain a match, this is a different pathway that they can apply to that would also provide them with supervised practice. And then at the end of this program, once again, this is an accredited program. So they would be issued with a verification statement stating that they had completed that 1,000 hours of practice. So then there's the coordinated programs. Again, this includes the nutrition and dietetics coursework specifically, and the 1,000 hours of supervised practice. So we're going to talk about like what are options. So this is a potential good option if somebody has a bachelor's degree in some other subject like sociology. They can potentially apply to a coordinated program, and it's an all-in-one contained program. You have options right now of having a coordinated program at the bachelor's level. Many of them are moving to the master's level. So if you're looking at, I already have a bachelor's degree, I want to become a registered dietitian, you could look for a coordinated master's program, and that would provide you the foundational coursework, knowledge, and the 1,000 hours. And at the end of that program completion, you would be issued a master's degree and a verification statement stating that you qualify for the RD exam. And then there's the future education model graduate program. We use the future education model and graduate program terminology kind of interchangeably. Sometimes it's easier just to say future education model because as we're talking about, most programs are going to be at the master's level. The term graduate program can be a little bit confusing. So with future education models, they are combined programs, but they're combined in a slightly different way. So the combination comes from, it's always 1,000 hours of rotations plus a master's degree. You're going to get this in every single future education model. But the requirements to get into a future education model vary greatly. There are some programs that you can come in with any bachelor's degree. You don't necessarily have to have a nutrition and dietetics foundation. You can be a career changer or just thinking that you want to go on that path for your graduate training. So some future education models will provide you that foundational coursework that you need to be a registered dietitian. Other programs, other future education models might require that you have completed a DPD program, that foundational coursework, or a list of prerequisite classes that largely make up what you would complete as part of a DPD program. And those could be prerequisites to get into the program. And so that way, a future education model is going to build on the knowledge that you've already obtained. And the master's degree could be in nutrition and dietetics. It could be an MPH program. It could be an MBA program. It could just be a professional practice and dietetics program. There's a lot of different types of master's degrees that are part of these future education models. And that's a new thing that we're seeing more and more of every day. So upon graduating from this program, though, again, you would be issued a verification statement, and this would qualify you to take the RD exam. So I want to just give you some examples. And so as we're thinking about different examples of individuals pursuing dietetics or thinking about dietetics, what would be pathways for them to get the RDN credential? So example number one is if an individual is currently a student and they're completing that didactic program in dietetics, they're doing that foundational coursework at the bachelor's level, what would they need to do next to qualify for the RD exam? So this example has the most options and the most straightforward options because they're going to have all of the foundational coursework. And at the end of that program, they're going to be issued a verification statement stating that they've completed the foundational coursework to be a registered dietitian. So students in this situation could complete a master's degree and a dietetic internship separately, or they could complete a combined program. Either one of those options are fine, but they would not be issued a verification statement until they did complete both the master's and the dietetic internship. So they could complete the DPD program and then go complete a master's degree and then complete a dietetic internship, or they could complete the DPD program and they could go on and complete a combined master's in dietetic internship. They could also go on to complete a coordinated program at the master's level. The difficulty here is, if you remember, the coordinated program also includes all of the basic knowledge and skills of dietetics programs. So you might find that you are repeating some of the same information, but for some individuals, they prefer to just do a coordinated program at the master's level because it's one program. And at the completion of that program, they would qualify to take the RD exam. And then if you're completing that DPD program at the bachelor's level, it's likely that you would qualify for most future graduate programs or future education models because you have had that foundational coursework, so you could go into a future education model. And often future education models vary in length. So some of them might be 2 years, some of them might be 1 year, and anywhere in between. But there are 4 different options for students who have completed a DPD verification statement to qualify for the RD exam. And just as a reminder, I'm talking about master's degrees, but this would also be the same case if somebody wanted to complete a doctoral degree as well. Example 2, you're graduating with a bachelor's degree, but it's not accredited or not in dietetics. And this is potentially 2 different paths, but the paths are similar. So if you're not graduating with a DPD verification statement, you're going to need some dietetics coursework. You're going to need a master's degree and you're going to need 1,000 hours of supervised practice. So what can you do? You already have a bachelor's degree. Here's a few options. You could complete just a DPD certificate. Some programs offer the ability to add on like a graduate certificate without getting a second bachelor's degree. Once you completed that DPD certificate, you could go on to complete a master's degree and a dietetic internship separately, as I mentioned before, or you could complete them combined. Now, there are some programs, as I mentioned, you could complete a coordinated master's program because the coordinated master's program provides all of the foundational knowledge and skills you need to be a dietitian, plus it would provide the master's degree and the 1,000 hours of supervised practice. There would be some prerequisites, for example, biology, chemistry, OChem, biochem, maybe microbiology, statistics class, the general prerequisites that you would need to get into any dietetics program. So that's another option. Or they can complete a potentially short list of prerequisites or an extensive list of prerequisites, and they could apply to a future education model without necessarily having a bachelor's degree or a DPD certificate. You could potentially still qualify for both a coordinated program or a future education model. The difficulty here is the coordinated programs typically have very similar prerequisite lists. Sometimes there's 1 or 2 classes that slightly differ, but if you look at the coordinated master's programs across the nation, the entrance requirements are going to be very similar. But that is not the case for future education models. So if you have a very unique circumstance where you don't feel like you fit in one of these boxes, it might be a good idea to look at some potential future education models because there might be one that's better for you than another. So at the end of these, you would qualify to take the RD exam. Example number 3 is you're a career changer, but you want to be a registered dietitian. And you have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in a different subject. What can you do? There's a lot of things you can do, but what are some of the easiest paths? You could complete a DPD certificate and a dietetic internship separately. You could complete a list of prerequisite courses and apply to that coordinated master's program. Or you could apply to a coordinated bachelor's program because you already have a master's degree in this situation. Or you could complete a list of prerequisite courses and apply to a future education model, but it will always result in a second master's degree because every future education model includes a master's degree. So then our 4th and final example is you're graduating with a bachelor's degree in nutrition and dietetics from a university that's outside of the United States. And the bachelor's degree in nutrition and dietetics is not accredited. In this situation, your best bet is probably to complete a list of prerequisite courses um, and a future education model, because it's likely that a lot of your coursework that you completed outside of the United States can be used to fulfill those prerequisite courses needed. The other situation is you could complete a different set of prerequisite courses and you could apply to a coordinated program at the bachelor's or the master's level, depending on the situation. There's additional steps to complete if you are completing your course, you've completed your coursework outside the United States. The degrees have to be verified by a third-party organization, and there are a few more steps, but it's good to understand where you can enter the system if you do have an international degree. So overall, if you have a DPD verification statement, there are many options to become an RDN. So that's really one of the best paths for a lot of individuals doing the RDN credential. But if you don't have a DPD verification statement, you might have a fewer options, but it's critical to find the right one that doesn't extend the path longer than what it needs to be. So I've talked about some different overall types of programs. How do we find those programs? So Ascend, the accrediting body, has a website where you can look up programs. And so here is the website here. I also have it on the references list. And so if you also just Google Ascend, ACEND program directory, this website will just pop up and you can use this to search for programs. Over here on the side, you can see at the right side and close to the bottom, it says filters. So there's a lot of different filters that you can utilize here. You can filter the type of degree you want. So if that's going to be the bachelor's or the master's degree, you can also choose whether or not this is face-to-face. You can choose what state you want to be in. You can choose if you want online learning. So this is typically where I send students to look at what all of their program options are, and you have the ability to filter through DPD programs, dietetic internships, coordinated programs, and also future education models. There's also a document called the Applicant Guide to Supervised Practice that you can purchase through the Academy. You might also be able to Google it, but that's for you to see if you can find it somewhere else. But this document can be purchased from the Academy. And it's really helpful because that's more information about programs without having to go to every single program website. The program directory through Ascend has a little bit of information, has where the program's located, who the program director is, the program website, but it doesn't tell you a lot more. But this applicant guide to supervised practice is largely just for programs that provide supervised practice. So it's going to be dietetic internships, it's going to be coordinated programs, and it's going to be future education models. But it can tell you more information such as how many students they accept each year and how much their tuition is. So that is a very useful resource if you have access to it. Other considerations that you'll want to make when you're thinking about pursuing your path to the RDN credential is, do you want to complete your schooling face-to-face classes versus online? There's lots of different options, and each individual has a different situation. And so I'm never going to say that one option is better than the other option. They're just very different options. You want to think about your geographic location. When you're thinking about programs, do you want a distance program? Do you want a program that's close to you? Where do you live? How many universities around you? And which universities offer a dietetics program? Another consideration is the length of the program. Programs have very different lengths now. So some of them are shorter, some of them are longer, but again, one is not better than the other. For some people who want to go part-time, a longer program is better. For those who want a quicker, more rigorous program, those programs are out there as well. Tuition costs vary greatly. There is not one real range for tuition costs related to dietetics programs. So that's one of the things I always tell students to look at is when you're looking at and narrowing down your options, definitely look at the tuition because that's a really important factor. Area of interest can be important. I feel like with all of my years in dietetics, that this is probably one of the least important areas, because as you're trained to become a registered dietitian, there's a lot of different areas that are covered as part of your knowledge and skills training, and as part of your supervised practice. All programs, in a sense, have to cover the same competencies and standards. So you're going to get similar experiences, but they are going to be slightly different. You don't necessarily have to complete a program in one specific area of dietetics. If you're interested in that area, it's a nice thing to include, but I wouldn't choose a program just based on that solely. And then again, as I mentioned, personal situations. Can you do full-time, part-time? Do you want an accelerated program? Is geographic location your most important thing? Thinking about what your individual situations are, and then finding a program that aligns with that. There are so many programs out there. If you can identify what you need in a program, you can definitely find a program that will help you check all of those boxes. And so here are my references, all of the different things I talked about. These will reference back to their specific websites. Here is my contact information if you have any questions. Here's my email address. If you go to the website of my program, you can also find my direct phone number. But I want to open it up for questions, and then I can go back and forth through my slides and answer any questions that you have related to the information that I've shared.
All right. So I would love to open it up to folks who want to unmute, but if you don't mind, I'll go back through the questions that had come through. We had a student ask if a plant science degree for the master's would work.
It just depends on what type of program you're looking for. That's the thing. So if you're looking at plant science, which is probably closer to horticulture, I'm assuming there's a lot of assumptions I have to make here as I answer these questions. But for you, it was probably more likely you want to look at a coordinated master's program or a future education model, because you probably don't have those foundational nutrition or foundational knowledge and skills related to dietetics. You don't have medical nutrition therapy, food service, food science, education and counseling, nutrition assessment. So you need those courses. So it would probably be the quickest trajectory would be to find a program that included those foundational courses, plus that supervised practice, plus potentially that master's degree if you don't have a master's degree already. So thinking about what path would be the best for you. So coordinated master's program or future education model. And then you can start, looking at programs that align with that, contacting those programs and thinking about, okay, what would work best for my situation?
Yeah, so if you already had the DPD undergrad and you wanted to do a master's in plant science, then I think we can ask Lacey to clarify, but that would be fine because we don't have a restriction on what you can do your master's in, but it might depend on what do you want to work, what do you want to do? Is that the right fit for a master's degree if you already have the undergrad? What do you think, Lacey?
Yeah, so if you already have a DPD program and you have a DPD verification statement, again, you can do your master's degree in anything that you're interested in, but you still have to do that supervised practice, that dietetic internship. I don't personally know of any combined programs that are plant science and a dietetic internship. So for you, if that was really your area of interest, you could pursue that. The path might just be a little bit longer. But what I would look at, I would find a university that potentially offered both of those things. Yeah, I would say the university I work for actually does have plant science and does have dietetics. We're in the same college, but we're in different departments. And so you might have to talk to a few people and say, hey, this is what I'm wanting to do. Is this possible? So I think there's definitely a path, but you just have to find a university that offers both of those things. And then you can talk about how you could potentially combine them.
Thank you. Do you mind if I speak?
Go ahead.
I'm the one who asked that question. Actually, yeah, Cal Poly does. And what I'm doing right now is just taking those DPD courses while I'm taking my plant science degree courses so that I could be halfway done by the time I'm finished getting my bachelor's in plant science. And so that leads to my next question is that if I pursue a master's in diet in nutrition, am I able to finish the rest of those DP courses in my master's? And if so, then would I get the verification statement then for the DPD courses?
So if you're asking this question specifically for Cal Poly Pomona, it's probably a question we need to maybe get the full answer offline. But it would just depend, because every undergraduate DPD program meets those guidelines slightly in a different way. It makes me, so it would depend on, you know, if you came to Cal Poly and you were trying to finish those DPD classes, you know, the list of classes you would need to complete based on what you already finished would be different than if you tried to get that post-baccalaureate DPD certificate from Cal State LA, for example. So if you are curious about Cal Poly Pomona specifically, then if you email me, I can definitely give you a more clear answer for Cal Poly. But the answer is going to be probably slightly different depending on what school you go to. What do you think, Lacey?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like once you get that far into something, you really just need to sit down with the advisors at the university that you're working with, and then figuring out how those things align, because they're all very, they're all unique to each situation. So as you can identify a school that can provide what you want, then you're going to have to figure out the pathway with them.
Okay, I'll just email you, Emily, again. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So we have a question. Are coordinated programs going away?
As far as I know, and I've had these conversations recently with us people in Ascend, that the coordinated programs are not necessarily going away. Will they go away in 20 years? We don't know. We can't necessarily speculate, but as far as like the next 5 to 10 years, we will maintain coordinated programs. It just provides a different option than some of the other programs that are out there now.
Will these slides be available after the meeting?
I'm happy to send the slides to you, Emily.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. We have a question. If I'm going to get my DPD bachelor's and then a master's and a dietetic internship, would I not get my DPD verification statement from my school that I got my bachelor's from? I answered this in the chat that they would get a DPD verification statement and then another verification statement after finishing the DI. Correct.
That's exactly right. So in a sense, every time you finish an accredited program, you're going to be issued a verification statement. So anytime someone completes a DPD program, that foundational knowledge and skills, they are issued a verification statement. And then as they go on to complete the next step that includes supervised practice, any of those options, coordinated dietetic internship, FEM, those all include supervised practice. So another verification statement would be issued at the end of that program as well.
And then what would be the difference between the master's combined with an internship and the future education model?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, the two programs are somewhat different because they have different competencies. And so students are exposed to competencies, but I mean, I know when I was a student, I understand that I needed to meet competencies, but I didn't truly understand the competencies. And so with each program, I'll just kind of click back to this page that have the different programs here. Each of these little squares are actually the different standards for each program. So there's certain standards or competencies that a DPD program has to complete, and a DI, and a CPD. So the CPD programs include all of the competencies for DPDs and DIs. And then the future education model kind of has its own set of competencies that look similar, but they're not exactly the same. And so what we find with the difference between a master's combined with an internship and a future education model is that one thing is the integration. So often a master's and a DI are sometimes stacked, or they're like interwoven. So maybe you do some masters and some supervised practice, and some masters and some supervised practice. Whereas in a future education model, they are integrated. And so typically you're doing coursework and supervised practice at the exact same time. And then that also provides the ability that sometimes future education models are accelerated. They're shorter programs because of that integrated nature. So they're very similar, but again, once you start looking at programs, there's doing a master's DI is a great option. Doing an FEM is a great option. Sometimes there's just little nuances. And so what you want to do is look at different programs and see which one most aligns with your goals related to becoming a dietitian.
So I was the one who asked that question. Thank you for answering it.
Yes.
So, the future education model, how would you know if a school is doing that over a combined like master's with your internship?
Yeah, great question. It should be on their website. So as part of our accreditation for all of these programs, it should be clearly documented on the homepage of their website of what type of program it is. It should say, we are a graduate program or future education model, or we are a dietetic internship with a master's degree. So for example, a future education model cannot use the term dietetic internship, and a dietetic internship cannot use the term future education model. So if you get on their homepage and just read through their homepage, it should be pretty clear to what their accreditation status is. The other thing you can do is you can go to, let me click through these slides again. If you go to this page, the program directory, and you look up the program, so you can just choose the state that you're in or the state that the school's in and look up that program, and it would clearly state what type of program the accreditation is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, Austin. Thank you.
Let's see, we have a, how much time do they have to complete those 1,000 hours of
Yeah, Jessica,
Vice
thanks for
practice?
asking this question. It just depends on the program. So for example, the 1,000 hours should be clearly outlined within the program. If you already have a master's degree and your DPD verification statement and you're just completing 1,000 hours of supervised practice, typically it's around 6 or 7 months. If you're completing a master's and DI combined, that could be anywhere from 18 to 24 months. And the supervised practice is going to be integrated somewhere in that program. And again, with future education models can be anywhere from 12 months to 24 months, and the supervised practice would be integrated into that program. So thinking about if you have a situation where you need a longer period of time and you're looking for a part-time program, then if it's a part-time program, you're going to have an extended period of time where you can complete that 1,000 hours. But it also should be clearly delineated on a website. Sometimes that's a little bit harder to find, but there should be a sample schedule that clearly says when the different components of the program are happening. And if not, you can contact the program director and ask them, and they should be able to easily share that information with you.
I think,
Sorry.
oh, go ahead.
Can you also, the coordinated program is if you have a bachelor's in something that's not nutrition, correct?
Yes, so you can apply to a coordinated program if you have a bachelor's degree in nutrition, but often I would say, for example, I did a coordinated master's program myself. When I went through school, there weren't a lot of coordinated master's program, but I did one of the few that were out there. I had a bachelor's degree in behavioral science and health. I still had to do my prerequisites of chemistry, OChem, biochem, statistics, psychology, those types of things. But then I went into that program with a bachelor's degree that was not in nutrition and dietetics. So that is an option for students. They might not have a bachelor's degree in nutrition and dietetics, but they'll have to take a short list of prerequisites. And in that coordinated program, they would have all the knowledge and skills taught in addition to the 1,000 hours of supervised practice.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Then I think I did answer this in the chat. We can verify, but do bachelors need to be accredited by DPD or only the masters? And so I said it would depend if you do the future graduate program with the DPD competencies and DI at the graduate level. You don't have to complete the undergraduate DPD.
Yeah, so this is where these are great questions because this is where it kind of gets confusing. So you need to be able, so there's a couple of options. You can do an accredited DPD program and then a dietetic internship or coordinated or future graduate program. that are all also accredited. So in that case, you get 2 verification statements. If you have a bachelor's degree that's not from an accredited program, the easiest thing is going to be either to get a DPD certificate, which would give you a verification statement, or complete a coordinated program or a future graduate program. At the completion of a coordinated program at the master's level or a future graduate program, if you complete one of those programs, you will be issued a verification statement, and all of those verification statements are going to say that you qualify to take the RD exam. So you don't necessarily have to do 2 different accredited programs, but the accredited program that you complete needs to lead to a verification statement that qualifies you to take the RD exam. So that's a question that you can ask. If I apply and complete your program, do you issue a verification statement? Does that verification statement indicate that at that point in time, I qualify to take the RD exam? And if they say yes, great. And if they say no, you would have to do this, this, or this, then that would tell you that that would fulfill part of your path, but not necessarily the entire path. And that's why I shared the information about the verification statements, because it's a really important question to ask.
Sorry, I was muted. The next question is similar. I did try to answer it in the chat, but they have a bachelor's not in nutrition and they want to complete a DPD and a DI. And to be eligible to apply for the MS in nutrition, they would need to complete all of the prerequisites. How many years do you estimate that it would take? And I mentioned that they could do a future graduate program that has the DPD competencies and the supervised practice together, and that would get them to that RD spot. But yeah, here you go. Example number 2.
Yes, example number 2, you have a bachelor's degree. It's not in nutrition and dietetics. So you have a couple of options. One, I personally would not recommend getting another bachelor's degree. I don't think that's a great option for students. You could do a DPD graduate certificate, which was just an add-on to your bachelor's degree, or you could do a DPD master's. There are some DPD programs out there at the master's level. They're few and far between, but they are out there. Or you could complete a list of prerequisite courses and apply to a coordinated program, or you could complete a list of prerequisite courses and apply to a future graduate program. So again, there's a lot of options. And so, one of the things you can do is just start thinking about potential programs that you might qualify for. And then I would encourage you to reach out to that program director or the advisor, whoever works with students, to kind of figure out the path and meet with them and talk about their situation. I would definitely reach out to people as soon as possible. I get lots of inquiries like this on a weekly basis. And it takes time for me to look through these inquiries and give recommendations back to students. And so if you're thinking, in fall, you want to pursue one of these options, you should be reaching out to people right now, because it just takes some time to connect with the right person, and then they need adequate amounts of time to, ask you questions back, figure out what your current situation is, and potentially give you advice on whether their program would meet your needs or you would qualify for their program.
Next question. If I choose an online coordinated master's program and we have to choose our own rotations, how do I choose my preceptors for the internship portion?
I can definitely answer that. So if you choose any type of distance program that includes supervised practice, okay, first you need to look at what preceptors they require. And that's a really important thing. So if you've determined the program, you want to look at what preceptors or facilities am I required to find? So what are the types and what are the lengths? Meaning how many weeks or how many hours? It's good to know both. And so then I would make a spreadsheet and I would detail this out, saying I need to find a clinical inpatient rotation that's 6 weeks and it is 300 hours, making a spreadsheet to know exactly what you're looking for. And then you want to contact preceptors. And so you have to have a good understanding. Hopefully this information is on the program's website about where you can complete these rotations at. Is this a hospital? Is this a rehab, a long-term care facility? Where do you complete your food service management? Is it in a hospital? Is it in a long-term care facility? Is it in a school? So you need to know like the logistics of where these preceptors are located. And then I just encourage people to use Google and just Google the location that you're looking at and reaching out to those preceptors. And so it can take quite a bit of time. I don't recommend programs that have you find the preceptors after the fact. Southern California is very impacted, and it can be very difficult to find preceptors there. And so there are a lot of programs that promise like, oh, you don't have to find preceptors as part of the application process. You can find them later. But I find that actually causes a lot of problems for students living specifically in Southern California, because in a sense they're promised something, but what they find is it's very challenging. It's doable, but it takes time. And so I do encourage people to find programs where you do find your preceptors as part of the application process to ensure that you're going to be able to find the preceptors and that is going to be the right fit and the right program for you.
Right. So we had a question. I did, let's see, answer it.
The DI programs require a master's
yeah.
to be done first.
Right.
I would say most of the time that's going to be yes, if it's not a combined program. And the issue is that at the completion of a dietetic internship, I'm also a dietetic internship director, I have to be able to issue a verification statement. But after January 1st of 2024, I would not be able to issue a verification statement if you had not completed the master's, because the issuance of that verification statement says that you're eligible to take the RD exam. If you don't have a master's yet, you're not eligible to take the exam. So you're going to find most standalone dietetic internship programs now and then into the future are going to require that you already have a master's degree, or that you show that you're in process of getting a master's degree. So at the completion of both of those, that verification statement can be issued.
All right. And then I emailed, I reminding everyone that I'm recording and that I will send the link out to everyone who's registered. We have a student, Amber, or a person, I guess they're a student. I'm in the middle of a DPD program and the dual program I was looking for at my master's DI is changing to a GP. Is this going to mess up my path, or would the GP, sorry, I'm having a problem seeing change work to my benefit, still be similar to a dual program master's DI? I'm having trouble understanding, but maybe Lacey sees this very clearly.
So my confusion is, it says I'm in the middle of my DPD program and the dual program. So that's the only thing I'm getting confused about. As far as if they're a master's DI and they're changing to a GP, there shouldn't be any concern with that, because although some of the competencies will change, as a student, you won't really see that. They're still providing a master's degree and they're providing supervised practice. They're just slightly changing the format of it. So it should result in the same things that you want to result in that verification statement. I am a little bit concerned or confused about that you're completing a DPD program and you're also completing those other two programs. You wouldn't qualify to complete a dietetic internship unless you were a DPD grad. So unless you have a DPD verification statement, you don't qualify to be part of a dietetic internship. And so that's where my confusion lies in that question.
Hi, that was my question. Sorry if I confused you.
That's okay.
But when I applied for the DPD program I'm in right now at SF State, I was looking at Cal State Long Beach for when I finish. So I was looking at the dual internship program at Cal State Long Beach, but I just looked online that it was changing. So I just got a little concerned. But you gave me a little bit more confidence. So thank you for answering my question.
No problem.
Okay.
I just talked to Dustin today. He's the director of that program. And so I don't think there should be any concerns with still applying to that program. So you're in your DPD program. Your goal is to apply to Cal State Long Beach. They're going from an MSDI to a future graduate program, but there shouldn't be any concerns in applying to that program, even if they're in the middle of the potential changes. It's still going to provide you with a master's degree and supervised practice, which will fulfill your requirements to become a registered dietitian. So I wouldn't have any concerns there. I would continue to complete your DPD and plan to apply to that program if that aligns with what your goals are. There should be no concerns there.
Lacey, I also had another question about preceptors. What do you mean by preceptors and like contacting them beforehand?
Yeah, so some programs, often distance programs, where you're completing a program that's outside of your state. So for example, I have a lot of students that live in California that complete my program. I'm located in Utah. So that's an option for students who maybe don't want to relocate. And so students can complete a distance program, and part of completing a distance program is often finding your own preceptor. So we call that self-identified practice sites. And so for some programs, when students don't want to relocate, they can identify preceptors in their own geographical location, and that allows them to stay and train where they live without necessarily moving. Where in, for example, a program like Cal State Long Beach, they don't have self-identified preceptors. They provide all of their preceptors. So that is not a component of that program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's see. So, why is Southern California more impacted than other parts of the program? I'm typing an answer, but I'd love to hear your answer as well.
Oh my goodness, right? I think a lot. I think a lot of reasons. I think that, COVID hit California really hard, and a lot of the COVID restrictions were really impactful to Southern California. I also think like some of the things that we see as positives coming out of COVID also potentially negatively impacted dietetics, meaning, a lot of people changed to remote work jobs or preferred to work from home. And this has left a lot of dietetics positions open in various areas. And why is California impacted so much? If you look at the states that employ the largest number of dietitians, the states are New York, Florida, Texas, and California. These states employ more dietitians and have more dietitian jobs than any other states in the country. And so there's a lot of positions. And I think that with the focus on remote work, this is left a lot of face-to-face positions open. And it is difficult to train students when you have open staff positions and the other part of your staff are picking up the work from those open positions. And I think we've continued to see this for a little bit of time since we were impacted by COVID. I'm looking to see, what was your comment?
Yeah, I think that part of the issue is the number of sites available, but then also we have a lot of DPD programs that are creating graduates here and a lot of DI programs. So there's a lot of people here looking for sites. So we end up, I think all of the challenges with the availability, plus on top of it, just the sheer number of folks that are graduating and wanting sites and not wanting to leave, right? People want to stay living here. And so they don't want to go, not to put down any other states, but they don't want to go somewhere else for a year. They like it here and they want to continue to practice here. And so they want to stay. And so
it's the same thing with Utah. People who live in Utah do not want to leave Utah. Like they'll do anything to not leave Utah. So it's very similar here as well. And Utah is actually quite impacted. And so I think some of the issue is if you look at the sheer number of DPD graduates, and so there's DPD programs tend to be larger than supervised practice programs. And so, if we just start thinking about what universities in California have DPD programs, it's great. There's a lot of great training opportunities. But when we dial down into the dietetic internships and the supervised practice programs, they become smaller. And so whether it's, Cal Poly Pomona, Cal State Northridge, Cal State Long Beach, San Diego State, there are a lot of DPD programs. And as Emily said, people don't want to leave California. I hear the weather is wonderful there. And so it just becomes a challenge because there's a lot of people looking for sites and we just cannot necessarily house everyone. I do encourage people, there are a lot of different opportunities for supervised practice. Inpatient clinical tends to be the hardest. So I always encourage students, if you want to stay and complete your supervised practice training in California, can you relocate for part of it? And so for some people, the answer is yes. For some people, the answer is no. But typically you can find most other training locations, but right now inpatient is just really challenging.
Linda Gray has her hand raised.
Yeah,
Would you
hi.
like-
I wanted to comment, Lacey was mentioning about, you did a nice job of describing, in terms of finding your sites and preceptors. And so I just kind of wanted to put out there too, to the students, that when they're looking at the different pathway options, I think that's a helpful thing to search for on each of those program websites, of whether or not the program itself does all of that planning for the student and secures the sites and preceptors on the student's behalf. Or, as you mentioned, Lacey, for some of the other program types, if it's the responsibility of the student to find those. So I would just encourage students to really study that on the different program websites.
Thanks, Linda. It's really important to be aware of what the program requirements are. And so that's part of it as well. You need to know if a program provides, they organize and provide all of that supervised practice, or if you have a role in identifying those preceptors, because those are two very different applications.
Yeah, and then I did attempt to answer a question. This is our last question. And I do want to be respectful of everyone's time because we're a little over here. But Jordan is a second-year clinical nutrition major, and their website states that this is the DPD or includes the DPD. Does this mean I still have to apply to the program, or will I be given the DPD verification statement upon completion?
Thanks, Jordan.
So, yeah.
It sounds like you will be issued a DPD verification statement, but then after the completion of this program, you will need to complete a program with supervised practice. So I don't know if your DPD program is at the bachelor's level or at the master's level. If it's at the bachelor's level, then you'll need to complete a master's degree plus supervised practice. So that could be a master's DI combined. It could be a future graduate program. Could be a coordinated program. You don't necessarily need to do a coordinated program. If it's at the master's level, so you're doing a master's DPD, then you would just need to complete a dietetic internship for that 1,000 hours of supervised practice. It looks like you're saying it was at the undergraduate level. So it sounds like it's a bachelor's DPD. So then you would need to go on to complete a master's degree and the 1,000 hours of supervised practice. I also want to just clarify, I say 1,000 hours of supervised practice. It's a minimum of 1,000 hours of supervised practice. The total number of supervised practice hours does vary program to program. It can typically be anywhere between 1,000 hours, maybe up to 1,200 hours, but it's going to be pretty close to 1,000 hours. But I find typically programs are usually at like 1,040, 1,080, maybe 1,100 hours. So it's a minimum of 1,000 hours. I don't want anybody to think because their program makes them do slightly more hours that they're doing something that they don't need to do. It's just a minimum of 1,000 hours.
Great point.
Hi, I have a question. My name's Edgar.
Hi, Edgar.
Hi, so I'm planning to do the DPD program. I'm actually a business major. I got my business degree for my bachelor's, and I'm working on the prerequisites right now. But I recently got a job in clinical setting for nutrition, and I was wondering, would I be able to do those 1,000 hours supervised there while doing the master program?
That just depends on the program that you get into. As far as the supervised practice program, it depends on the facility that you're working at. Again, there's so many different factors. You're not going to be able to do it as part of your job. I know that for sure. But
okay, that was my question.
Having a job at that facility might provide you a good opportunity that facility will support you and offer you training for the clinical portion of your hours. But you don't have a job as a dietitian. And so even as a diet tech, diet clerk, you're learning a lot of really great skills that are helpful in dietetics, but it's not what a dietitian does. So you'll still need to do your supervised practice hours working alongside a registered dietitian. It could be in that facility. I always encourage people to work in hospitals if possible, because that's a great way to make good connections with different hospitals, and they may support your supervised practice training.
All right, perfect. Thank you for answering my question.
Thank you.
All right, we have reached the end of our questions in the chat. And Rachel Flores put in to just remind the student to check with your academic advisor and the DPD director to make sure that the program you're enrolled in is in fact the DPD program, and it will lead to you completing those DPD classes. Because there are programs like at Cal Poly where you can be a nutrition major, but we have different options. And if you don't complete the DPD dietetics option, then at the end you haven't completed the DPD classes. So you want to do your due diligence. Just make sure you're enrolled in the right option to lead to the path that you're hoping to finish. See, and then Lacey, I see that you put your email address in there. Thank you so much. I do want to be respectful. I know that you are, I think you're an hour or so ahead. So it's getting late there. Thank you so much for joining us today and providing some clarity about our different program options. When the recording's available, I'll send it to everyone, including you, Lacey. And if you have time, if you're able to send your slides at some point, I will make those available as well.
I'll send you those slides out tonight so you have them and you can distribute them to everybody who attended. So thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a good evening, and thank you to everyone who attended.